like to welcome strangers to Talkumentary, a show where we watch documentaries and then get together and talk about them.
Ladies and gentlemen, watch now. What we're going to do is a little demonstration here. For this, though, I would like to take the lights down just a little bit. Can we have the lights down? DJ, can you please turn the lights down? Turn the lights down. DJ, okay, there they go. For this demonstration, I'm going to need a volunteer from the audience. Can I have right there, young lady in the front row? Can you come up here, please?
Oh, yes.
What's your name?
It's Katy. Hi.
Katy, do you trust me?
No.
Okay, well, here, don't move from that spot. You will not get hurt if you do not move. Don't move. If you do, I might accidentally hit you with another episode of Talkumentary. All right, here we go. Ow! Oh my God! I just hit her with another episode of Talkumentary.
Yeah, that was fun.
That poor girl.
I know.
But do you trust me? No.
Nope.
I thought you were supposed to say yes.
No.
Do I trust me? Oh, yeah, I trust myself.
Welcome, everyone, to the 32nd episode of Talkumentary. Whoa. I am your illusionist for the night, or magician, however you want to say that, the Colossal Kolaski. Allow me to introduce my lovely assistant, looking dashing as ever in his nice leotard he's got on today, Mr. Brice Necker.
Hello.
Hello, Brice. We'll be sawing you in half later, so hang out for a while. For our first trick, I'm going to need two unlikely suckers from the audience. The two in the front row. What are your names? Everyone welcome King James and Lady Katy.
Hello.
Hey.
Welcome back to the Talkumentary Magic Show, ladies and gentlemen. Before our first demonstration here, I want to get some housekeeping out of the way. Normally, I do this at the end of the show, but just like last week, since a lot of you don't listen to the end, which you should, because you'll never know what kind of secrets we hide at the end of our shows, if you don't stick around. So I'm going to say this now, abracadabra. Go out, rate, and review our podcast on your favorite podcast streaming services. It helps us to know what you think of our show, if there's things that we can do better, or there's things that you love, or anything like that, or if you just want to bitch at us for cackling like little hens or something like that,
we love.
Go ahead. We love the hate. If you want to connect to our crew, you can look for us at Talkumentary Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, or you can email us at info.talkumentary@gmail.com. Enough with that shit. This week, we took the stage for a look into the life of a dying magician, but also into the bizarre story of the film crew, or crews, that filmed his documentary. We endured a wild 91 minutes of meth-fueled magic mayhem in a documentary called The Amazing Johnathan Documentary. Bum, bum, bum.
Nothing you're seeing is real. Can you trust anything that a magician does?
Do you remember the first email you ever sent to me?
No.
It's very short, very simple. So it ends with, if we just stick to the truth.
What's your point to this?
What are you saying, Ben?
Put your hands together for Amazing Johnathan.
The Amazing Johnathan sort of deconstructed magic.
He was like a rebel magician. I loved him.
I performed in over 100 TV shows, made millions of dollars, and everything came crashing down when I was told I had a year to live. It's not a joke. So, my diagnosis with a heart problem was years ago. I'm overdue. Do a little speed now and then.
He's never going to quit.
I want to go back on the road and do some more shows.
He associates the success with the drugs. What are we telling him to go back to?
It's not a good idea. What if he died on stage with people laughing because they thought it was part of his bit?
Do you think there's any chance he's fabricating his diagnosis?
The Amazing Johnathan setting off a little bit of a comeback tour.
Is he still sick?
You know, you just never know with him. Is this a joke? Every morning I wake up worrying that he's going to not be alive anymore.
Everyone thought that the whole dying bit was a prank.
I feel dizzy.
You need answers, buddy.
Why are you even asking me that?
Are you disappointed that I'm not dying in your time frame?
Don't go.
You're wasting my time.
What is really going on?
This is way out of my realm. It's like private investigator work.
Access might be cut off.
This is my answering machine.
I feel bad that I'm using him for his death.
It's been going on for too long.
He's been working on this for years.
You need to finish something up.
You're dealing with a mess.
And they don't want to be filmed.
What is the story here?
I want you to smoke with me.
If I was in your shoes, I would smoke meth.
It's gone to journalists.
Keep telling yourself that.
Absolutely not.
You have to.
I'm making a documentary on you.
The other documentary team was there.
So is it a race to get yours out first now?
Why don't you see how weird that is?
They do.
We both gonna kill each other.
This documentary was a wild ride that begins very ordinary, but quickly turns into an increasingly bizarre array of twists and turns. I get the feeling, if I'm reading your mental minds. Wow. Are you really fucking asleep,
Nope.
James?
Nope.
Wake up.
I am not asleep. I'm just waiting for you guys.
You didn't respond at all to my mental minds comment.
I know it.
And
I wasn't going to do
your
it this
head
time.
is drooping to the side.
I said, I ain't going to mess with it this time.
All right.
The mental mind, there's no such thing. Can't use that word.
I'm reading your mental mind over there, James, and all of you in this room, and I'm getting a premonition that we did not all feel the same about this documentary. What did you guys think? Brice, let's start with you, buddy. This was your choice, but we'll get into why you chose it. But what did you think of this?
You know, it was one that I watched a while back, and it surprised me, and I really enjoyed it because it starts out, and I feel like, you know, it's an interesting enough documentary about a comic magician, and he happens to do a lot of meth. Let's watch that, you know?
Sure.
But there's just treasures along the way that keep you riveted with excitement.
Yeah. Okay. Katy?
I thought it was trash.
We'll get into why you thought it was trash, but get the
Overall, yes.
Overall, yeah. Garbage.
Brice, I have lost some faith in you, but you can always win it back because you're very funny.
It's not my fault it was there to begin with.
I'll give you that.
Yeah. James, man, wake up.
I'm up.
What'd you think?
I think that it was all right.
It was all right.
I like it.
So we had it was good, it was bad, and it was all right.
It was all right. It was interesting.
Yeah.
In a lot of different ways.
Yeah, this was definitely one unlike anything we've watched. It's not and you know, before we started recording, Katy even mentioned this, we didn't really learn anything in this one, so it's not anything you know, a lot of times, not always.
I feel better after watching it.
Yeah. A lot of times documentaries are, you know, you get something out of it. This I don't know if we did, but I enjoyed this. I thought it was great. This might be one of the first ones where I was actually going like, what's gonna happen? like this it wrote out like a more of, you know, you could see this being like a actual film, like made into a movie or something like that. So anyway, I thought it was pretty good. It was directed and written by Ben Berman, executive produced by, spoiler alert, Simon Chin. This film was an anonymous content, Cold Iron Pictures, and Horse production. This was a Hulu documentary streamed on Hulu. The Amazing Johnathan Documentary certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes with an 80% tomato meter with 41 reviews and an audience score of 56 with over 100 ratings. So it looks like critics and audience were at odds with each other. We had an 80% for critics and then 56% with audience. So more like Katy was the audience and James and Brice were the critics here. So
way to go, guys. Way to go.
Here's a few of those reviews. Eddie Harrison of The List gave it 4 out of 5 stars. He said, timely, infuriating, and empathetic. Bergman's personable account of a film gone wrong makes for an engrossing diversion into practical magic. And then Peter Bradshaw of The Guardian, who gave 2 out of 5 stars, says, for 91 tiring minutes, director Ben Berman sort of tells us a story that is sort of interesting, but maybe not really, padding the film with selfie footage of his own chaotic production problems. So, Katie's nodding her head. For those of you watching on YouTube, you see Katie's nodding her head going, yes, Peter Bradshaw.
Thank you, sir. You got it.
Anyway, we'll have a link with credit information in the showy notes. Let's get into it. A quick warning before we get into this episode. And here's something that I can't usually say. So this is our spoiler alert. This is a documentary that actually could be spoiled for you. So there is some things that you don't expect that happen throughout this thing. And if you're like me, you were a little bit in awe of that. So if you care about that, go and watch this before you listen to us. Most of the time, I don't think it's necessary to necessarily go out and necessarily watch
a lot of necessary. Was that necessary?
That was the most unnecessary amount of
necessarily.
All right, so the Amazing Johnathan Documentary. Why did we watch this? Brice, it took you no time at all to name this documentary when I asked you to pick one. And you've been looking forward to this one for a while. Tell me why.
It's such a funny documentary to me because
this has your humor written all over it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like honestly, big fan of the Amazing Johnathan's stand-up.
Yeah.
Not that I've seen it before this documentary or after,
right?
But the little bits we see in here, I'm just like, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
It's a pitcher holding a pitcher in a picture of a pitcher.
Right.
I'll concede that was a good point.
Yeah.
That was a good one.
Yeah. And the you know, some of his jokes and things were, you know, can we bring the lights down? Can we bring the lights down? And then an actual light falls from the ceiling. And it's like, oh, it's too far. It's too far. You know, that sort of thing. You know, that's got Brice Necker written all over it.
Or how he'll start a joke and then have someone on stage and he's going to go with that magic illusion or whatever. And then he gets sidetracked and does like 5 other things and never gets back to the thing he pulled the guy on stage for.
Yeah. And the guy's just kind of standing there like, yeah, it's an interesting thing. And there's a reason he got as famous as he did for a time. I mean, people liked that. Yeah. So how about Katy and James? Did you guys have any predictions going into this? Had you seen it before?
No, this is my first time seeing it.
Yeah.
I didn't have any prediction going on because this is like one I just wanted to see what would happen, what's going to happen.
Yeah.
You know, and it was interesting. It was interesting. He did have some funny jokes on there, you know.
Yeah.
Especially the one where it says, this is where the rings are together. And now they're locked. That's enough of that. And he throws the ring.
Yeah, he's like,
that's a good joke.
But they come that way, so it made it a lot easier.
It made it a lot easier.
Big time saver.
Yeah.
So I thought that was funny.
Yeah. Katy, what were your predictions going into this? I sent you the link saying the Amazing Johnathan Documentary, and you thought,
I thought this is about a child who wants to become a magician, and I was very sorely disappointed. But then when it opened, I thought it was going to be a story about ALS, a magician dying of ALS, and then would end with him in the hospital.
Oh.
And took a different turn, but not terribly different, and then just totally imploded.
Interesting. Okay. You know, for myself, I definitely expected, you know, just from looking at the trailer and the like movie poster kind of thing, I definitely expected sort of a rough, like drug-induced, the decline of a magician. I thought it was going to be more of we watch his decline health-wise, which I think it was kind of what Katy was saying. I definitely didn't expect the drama of the film crew and the involvement of Ben Berman in the film.
Me neither.
That was pretty surprising to me.
Imagine how surprised he was.
Yeah, seriously. So instead of giving a synopsis for this documentary, I think I want to kind of tell the story of this documentary and sort of in a timeline fashion. So we haven't technically given away any major spoilers at this point. So I think let's talk about each scene as it plays out. Are we all good with that? I'll sort of, keep us going. And then rather than just blurting out our standout moments, we'll go sort of scene by scene. Let's give it a try. If it doesn't work out, well, neither did the
documentary.
Yeah. All right. So the film starts out in the room with Jonathan and Ben talking to an Echo Dot, being read trivia questions, things like that. Then being asked, the amazing Jonathan, ask about the amazing Jonathan, and Echo was able to give a full description. And I think we kind of quickly find out that Jonathan Seasels, something like that, aka the amazing Jonathan. We find out he was diagnosed in 2007 from cardiomyopathy, which is a heart disease that affects the muscles and makes it harder for the heart to pump blood to the rest of his body. The diagnosis basically made, in Jonathan's own words, everything come crashing down, as he was told he only had about a year to live. What a difficult thing to find out, no matter who you are. If you're told, hey, you've got this thing and you're going to die and you probably only have a year. For a while, Jonathan kind of shuts down, and it seemed, and they said, several people they talked to, the wind was taken out of his sails. This was a guy who was full of energy. He was full of vigor, and however much of that energy was cocaine fueled, but how do you guys think he would feel if you got that documentary or wow. Diagnosis. Thank you, James. So, you've had your share of health scares. What if you got a word from the doctor and said, you got a year left?
I was just talking to Brice about this earlier today. Many steps and stuff that you feel, what would you regret? With the things, and, I thought facing your fears would be one of the things, and I was telling Brice that fear is temporary, but regrets are forever. Mm-hmm. So, and I just thinking about that. So a lot of it's making changes in your life. And what he did in this video, I don't know if I'm going ahead, but in this video, what he did was live what he loved doing.
Yeah.
And that's what he did.
Yep.
He lived what he loved doing, and he didn't stop. He stopped for a little bit, and he went on with it. I'm like, okay, that's cool.
Yeah. So you're feeling like, instead of, I'm going to come back to that. Let's keep going. Katy, Katy, do you get that diagnosis? Are you feeling the same as James? Are you going to change the way you live?
I wish I could be that philosophical and deep.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I would buy a plane ticket and start in Europe and then work my way around the world.
However long you could go, kind of deal?
Yeah, I'd just start where I wanted to and keep going, and then spend the last few moments with my family and friends. But first, there's just, you have to be a part of the world, I think. And that's what I would want to do.
Yeah. Rack up a credit card. Fuck it.
Yep. I can't charge me later, but
yeah,
too bad for the rest of the family.
Yeah, whoever gets stuck with that, whatever. The bank will take it back. They're fine. Yeah, Brice, that's a heavy thing to think about, I know, especially at the introduction to a fairly lighthearted episode. But
yeah, apparently I just keep picking documentaries that have death involved.
That people die, yeah.
But, whatever. I think if I were to be diagnosed with something, I don't know what I would do. And I don't think anyone really does.
Yeah.
And I think I'd just sit on that for a while and then maybe go see a movie or something.
Fair enough. Yeah. And that, I was interested to see what you guys were going to say, because James, you right off the top, you said I would start changing the way I live, and that. And I think that might be a little bit opposite from what a lot of people would do. I feel like if I knew I only had a year left, I'm more with Katy, where I'm going to eat the things I want to eat. I'm going to, drink the things I want to drink. I'm going to travel. I'm going to rack up the debt. I'm going to, because what's it matter at this point? Now it's a little bit different. I don't want to stick my family with a bunch of debt or anything like that. So maybe not so much in that. And also you wonder about how good you're going to feel during that last year.
Yeah. You don't want to suffer.
Right. Am I going to feel like I can go out and travel Europe or, that sort of thing. But
that's good. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And another thing, when you live your life like this, living your life and stuff, and there's a lot of things like you might regret, like just constantly working and not spending time doing some of the things you like to do, like Katy's saying.
Yeah.
Or you might want to be more surrounded or have more to do with the people that that you love people, your family, ones that are in your circle. You might want to spend more time with them and say, hey, let's have this fun. Let's do this. Let's do that. Let's do this. I personally probably wouldn't tell anybody in my family that I only had a year to live.
You better tell me. I would be so mad at you if I found out you knew that. I'd be like, I'm sitting here working you like a dog at work and you're dying. No.
Like a Hebrew out there just sweating in the sun and
what?
Glistening off my eyes, water running off my eyeballs.
Should I ask him to explain the reference?
I think
Hebrews were,
I don't know.
Hebrews were slave back in Egypt.
Oh,
So like a
got
Hebrew,
it.
Yep.
I'm following.
So yeah, a lot of people will get that, but the uncultured people.
Oh,
no,
shut up.
Little bit
That's
of
a
humor.
good one. I'll take it. Yeah.
a little humor. That's all. But yeah, I think I would like that because no one ever asked if they were dying on their deathbed.
Yeah.
No one would ask, "Is my car clean?
Nope.
Is my house clean?
Right.
I got enough money?" They would all ask like, "Where's my sister? Where's my mother? Where's my uncle? Where's something? Or even your dog? Where's my pet at?
Hell yeah.
Something like that. Those are things that go through your mind. So that goes through my mind probably.
Yep.
I'm so glad I ate that salad.
Yeah. No, it's I want another quesadilla.
Yeah.
Speaking of that sounds pretty good. Right?
That does sound good.
So they jump to all right. So we find out that he's got this diagnosis. He's got a year to live, and all of a sudden we get we get hit with 3 years later. Obviously, Jonathan's still alive and kicking. Ben Berman, the director of this film, at this point doesn't really show himself very much in the documentary. He's sort of doing what documentarians do most of the time, and that's sort of staying in the background. We learn that Jonathan started doing magic when he was a young man, doing birthday parties for kids. As time went on, he got interested in drugs. He says that he was addicted to cocaine for 20 years, but then he stopped doing coke because a little thing called speed came along, which he jokingly says, speed got me off of coke. Like, oh, okay. Speed and meth or meth, kind of the same thing, little differences. I looked them up, but they're pretty minute. They're pretty much doing the same thing to you. The way that I understood it. Is that, James, in your experience with the speed and meth world, is that kind of the same thing, or do you not know?
I don't know nothing about speed, but meth is very deteriorating, body deteriorating. The bone density, you'll lose tooth. With coke doesn't really do that. We're gonna switch up the coke from powder to crack. Crack and coke is the exact same thing. One is just added with water and baking soda mix and have it consolidate to a solid piece.
And then you smoke it.
And then you can smoke it.
Right.
Same type of method, same thing, but I just think you could smoke crack and it won't keep you up all day. But meth, you can not go to sleep for days on end.
Oh, sounds awful.
Yeah, this
I
is
love sleeping.
trust me.
So during this, quote unquote drug enriched time of Jonathan's life, he gains success. He gets super famous in his circles. He, is on a bunch of late night shows. He playing in casinos. He was famous. I mean,
he performed for 2 presidents.
Yeah, which is pretty cool.
It was Reagan, so
yeah. Bigger stage than we've been on so far. If there's any current or former presidents listening right now,
we're here for offer.
Yeah, come on, we'll talk.
Yep.
Come, yeah. No, actually, I don't really want to. Anyway, we get a lot of pretty big named magicians and comedians, giving him some real pop. We got Carrot Top, who's looking wonderful.
Eric Andre.
He done beefed up a little bit too.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. Unfortunately, though, because a lot of his success happened when he was doing hard drugs, they believe that Jonathan sort of started associating his success with drug use. So he found it pointless to stop. Now, probably too, proud to admit the fact that he was addicted hardcore. So it's not just pointless, it's difficult to stop, especially after he's been given a death sentence. So that a little bit goes back to what we were talking about. It's almost like fuck it. If I'm dying,
right?
Why go through the withdrawals and everything? I'm just gonna keep doing this. You know, I mean, it is what it is.
I thought it was kind of weird because the way his wife explained how just the top part of his heart was beating.
Yeah.
And, you know, if that's all you got beating and you want to speed that little bit up with speed, oh, my God.
Maybe it would help.
Probably.
The doctors can't officially say it, but
I mean, are we dipping into, you know, unpopular territory when we say?
Oh, so you're trying to say like Viagra. Viagra started off as a heart drug,
and
ended up being a little arousal drug. You know what I mean? So same thing. Maybe you're gonna say meth. If you got a real bad heart,
well,
try meth.
You know, I don't think that anybody would necessarily endorse that, but you're kind of going, if he was already addicted to this recreationally, you know, he lasted a long time. We'll get into that. I mean, he lasted a long time after this original diagnosis, and you got to kind of wonder. I scratch my head and go, could that have been making his heart move faster and do more? I mean, I hate to speculate that, but
I think he took all his pills and did everything he had to do.
Yeah.
On top of that, you know.
Yep. Which, by the way, him swallowing that horse pill was really tough to watch.
Oh my God.
I still couldn't tell if he was joking or not.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah,
the sweat on his forehead told me he was really trying.
Yeah,
but I still thought like that pill wasn't that bad.
No, I've taken worse pills than that just for antibiotics and things like that.
They're chalky.
Yeah, it's gross. I'm not saying I like it. I just so Jonathan decides he wants to go back on stage. He starts doing shows again, a final tour of sorts. Talk to me about Jonathan's return to magic. So he was using some of his old acts, not writing much new, finding props like an hour before the show. What do you think this was all about? His return to magic. What was his reasoning for that? What was...
I think just as a person, he's so much of a performer. Like, he would sit there and watch his old videos, and he would quote them word for word as he's doing meth, you know?
Yeah.
And, like, his whole life has been a performance, so he's sitting at home for the first time, not working, and bored out of his mind.
Yeah.
Like, he's floating around in the pool and stuff, but how long can he do that before he's like... I want to go die on stage or something.
Right.
So
something he like.
Yeah.
You know, I'm gonna die. I want to die what I like doing, or what I love doing. So that's say.
Yeah. Well, the thing that made me all the success, the thing that made me all this money. I mean, they even talked about it early on. Like, that's one of the things they don't tell you about getting rich and famous. That you don't have to work. You start kind of getting bored and like, what are you gonna do? Katy, you've kind of feeling the same way. His return was more of a, I'm bored and I want to do something, or was he trying to like regain some of his fame, or what are your thoughts?
I think when he didn't die at the proposed time, he became distracted and probably restless and wanted to feel what he used to feel, regardless of what it was going to do to his body. And he disregarded his wife's feelings and his doctor's feelings, because the only life he knew was the life on stage. And if that's what makes you happy, the one thing that makes you happy, I mean, who's going to stop you?
Right.
And if they're not stopping him from doing drugs. So really his life is in his own hands. And I mean, I can't blame him if he's miserable at home and what he loves to do is to be on stage. It may not be the best show. It may not be the greatest, but if he's happy doing what he's doing, then...
and the first show didn't go great. No. I mean, Ben came in and he asks him, how was the first show? You remember how he responded? He says, shut up, leave me the fuck alone. But then he basically said, get the fuck out of the room, I don't want to talk about it. But in that same sentence, you know, kind of, he says, but each show will get better. He's like, this is how it goes. The first one's going to be terrible. Like, okay, so maybe he's hamming it up for the camera. You kind of wonder, he's a performer, so how much of what we saw in this documentary was a performance?
Right.
Probably a lot of it would be my guess, especially as we get further and we see some of the things that we'll see, but we'll get there. Jonathan's wife starts talking about how she's afraid Jonathan's going to die on stage, like Tommy Cooper, who was a magician, kind of comic, of an older generation. And everyone was laughing at him, thinking it was part of his bit, which you have to kind of expect. It's kind of like, if...
That was terrifying.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. But, if Houdini had actually drowned in the thing, people would be sitting there wondering, like, when's he going to wake up, and because it seems like it's all part of the act. Well... that's probably what it seemed like. He seemed like he was joking. So you're going to laugh because you're trying to give him a good show, but you're sitting there laughing at him. And no wife wants to see their husband die on film and on stage.
Or killing himself doing drugs on film.
Essentially killing himself. Yep. But this is sort of his rise back into, at least how the filmmakers did it, his rise back into... the spotlight in some ways. They spring into sort of a montage of him getting ready to get back into it. He's, wiring things up. He's planning all that good stuff. Writing, his new show and everything. Getting ready for the meteoric rise from the ashes of the Amazing Johnathan, right? Because he came back
like a phoenix rising.
Right, yeah. And this is sort of the point in the documentary where we find out a bit of shocking news, or more so, Ben Berman finds out some shocking news. Ben Berman being the filmmaker, he finds out after about 6 months into his filming of Johnathan and following him around and asking him questions and doing all this, that Johnathan has actually allowed a second documentary film crew to start making a documentary about the Amazing Johnathan.
There can't be enough material.
Right. Why did Johnathan allow this, you guys think?
Well, they had really good credentials.
Right?
Yeah, they did.
So-called.
Yeah.
Like I said, he said more the merrier. Why not?
Okay, so
why not? More the merrier. Why not?
So he thought, fuck it. If there's two people wanting to do a film on me, we're going to let them do it.
Right.
Pretty much. Yeah. So the second crew was touting that they were from the same production company that won several Oscars for Man on Wire and Searching for Sugar Man, which are, well-renowned documentaries that won awards. I actually looked into doing Searching for Sugar Man on this show. Someday we'll probably get to both of those. I would imagine. Stay tuned, and you'll find out. Go ahead, James.
Oh no! I was going to say, was that like searching for Hoffa?
Not Jimmy Hoffa.
Not Jimmy Hoffa. I don't. Sugar Man and Jimmy Hoffa are in the same spot, you guys.
No,
it's like Candyman.
I'm just kidding. If I remember right, Searching for Sugar Man was about a musician that I'm gonna look it up here real quick.
I should have looked. I was gonna look, but then I was like,
it's a magician. So two South Africans set out to discover what happened to their unlikely musical hero, the mysterious 1970s rock and roller Rodriguez, also known as Sugar Man. So
interesting.
Yeah, it seemed pretty cool. I watched the trailer when we were deciding our schedule for this show. So anyway, Johnathan was super stoked about this film crew coming because he's going, these guys won Oscars. They're great. He's telling everyone that wants to hear it, these guys are wonderful. Ben, not so much. And you kind of see the tensions start to rise between Ben and the second documentary crew. The second crew was pretty lame. They
totally lame, man.
Yeah, they were lame. Talk to me about Ben's interactions with that crew. Tell our wonderful listeners, what that was like for him. I mean, we saw blurred faces. We heard distorted voices. They didn't want nothing to do with this documentary.
Good.
They were very cordial for being arch nemesis at that moment.
Nemesis.
It's
uncomfortable.
But it's like, like Ben's friend was saying, you show up to work to your desk and there's already someone
at your
sitting
desk.
there doing the same job.
Are you going to keep doing the job?
Are you going to keep doing the job? Like, And it's just like
it was messy.
They would show up to the same like theaters, and then the other crew would take all the
Lighting
filming
spots,
points before he got there, and then like even on the bus. He's filming the other crew, and he's like, I don't really want to be in your thing, man.
Yeah.
Like,
and, Ben, he wanted to make the dueling documentarians, part of the story, at one point, because he's sitting here trying to go, how do we make this not weird?
There's just not enough content. It's one magician.
Right.
What else are you going to do? Oh, there's another crew here. That's awfully weird. We should talk about that. The elephant in the room, for goodness sake.
Exactly. Because what else are we going to talk about? We're sitting here watching this guy smoking meth, and then he'll go on stage and do the same show he's done 300
a million times.
Would you guys have been as accommodating to that second crew, do you feel like?
I think I would have just been following around like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Just to annoy him. Because, why are you here?
Yeah.
This is just so weird.
Yeah, and I was here first.
Yeah.
But they won 2 Academy Awards.
Right.
Do you have it in your pocket? Is he here? Can I see Oscar?
Yeah, where is that golden goodie? I don't know that I would, if I'm sitting here going, okay, if someone else started a podcast where they watch documentaries and then talk about them and they called it like Talkumentary or something like that, and I'm going, hold on a second, like this was kind of hard, not to say that nobody does this, but watching the same documentaries every week and following our schedule and doing the same content and everything.
We'd send them poop in a bag.
Right. I feel like I wouldn't be like, well, we just got to do it better. I feel like the defensive part of me would be like, nah, homie.
This is our territory.
This is my thing. We got to
Mom, make them stop.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't want my mom coming after you.
No.
My mom's listening to this, by the way. So
she's a cool and sweet and nice lady.
That's true. You're right. Okay, so Ben he kind of starts to become a bigger part of the story here, not as much as the background character, because once the second documentary film crew gets involved, it stops becoming as much about the Amazing Johnathan and starts becoming more about the dueling documentarians about the Amazing Johnathan. We begin to learn a little more about his background, his desire to film and document from an early age. He lost his mother when he was 11. He starts talking about how conflicted he was, deciding if he should continue going with the film because of this, bigwig company out there filming, and has Jonathan's bigger endorsement. I mean, Jonathan's sitting there going, well, they should be the first ones to release anything. And they're more renowned. He goes on the radio and he kind of gives Ben a hard time going, where are your Oscars?
Right.
Like this is going to be great. Ben's right there. So I started feeling kind of bad for Ben in some points because I'm going, so this is, if I remember right, this is Ben's directorial debut. Like this is kind of his first thing. And, he's sitting there going, I'm being outdone, and the subject of my documentary likes them better anyway, But Ben's friend gives him a little advice that I really loved. He said, you have to finish the documentary. He's like, you have to do it. But he says, the next thing he says is meddle. Be meddlesome.
Yeah.
He goes, be very passive-aggressive and meddlesome.
Yes.
Be very positive on the outside, but inside you can be negative and troubled.
Poke.
Yeah, exactly. Poke them. See what's going on,
So saying, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Yeah. And this is sort of when, and I do like that Ben had the ear of a bunch of these comedians and magicians, because he's telling them, and that
their reactions were amazing.
They were, yeah. You could tell he just told them that there was a second film crew, and they're all sitting there like, what?
Yeah.
Like, that's fucked up, dude. Like, really?
Weird Al was like, what happens to your documentary?
Yeah.
What happens to this one?
That sympathy, that empathy he had.
Yeah. How do you guys feel at that point when, after you we find out that he's got the second film crew? How are you guys feeling at this point in the documentary?
Ridiculous.
Ridiculous.
Okay. It's supposed to be a documentary about a guy who's a magician who's going back to doing it after he had a life-changing diagnosis. And did he hire this documentary or did they come to him? That's what I feel like we never found out.
Yeah.
And it just didn't make any sense. And for the rest of the documentary, none of it made any sense.
Right.
And it was just
bizarre.
It was
is the
bizarre
right
and I
word.
hated it. So
James, how about you, man? How'd you feel after finding out the second crew was there?
That's what mine just perked up. I guess said, "Oh, he got sickles. Let's see what's going to happen now."
Yeah,
that's what.
So
I was
had you
looking at.
glued? I mean, it had me glued
it broke
too.
me in
like-
when it did. I like, but all in all, no one really asked Jonathan that. I said, "Jonathan, what you want us to do?" Jonathan was like, "What the heck? Hey, why not?"
Yeah, he kept saying, if there's two crews that want to follow me around and whatever, then let them.
Let them do it.
He had no loyalty.
They want to fight over me. That's great.
Right.
Gonna battle to the death.
Yeah.
But in the documentary, Brice, did he call Ben to do the documentary for him?
No, I don't think
I don't
he
think
called
so.
anyone. I think he was just a famous comedian who was supposed to be dead and wasn't.
and
Yeah,
all
I
of
think
them
that-
reached out to him.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Really?
and when he announced the new shows, that's when the new crew
Got
jumped
it.
on and took over because they
Yeah.
wanted. He's coming back from the dead to do these shows, so
Yep.
That's
yep.
right.
The I think there's something to be said about, Jonathan only has a year to live, and then after 3 years you're going, hold on, maybe we have a subject for a story, so
Yeah.
people's ears start to perk up a little bit. But the impression that I got was what Brice said. I don't know that Jonathan reached out to anybody. I think people were coming to him going, "Can I tell your story? Can I follow you around for a while?" So we start to watch Jonathan's health as it seems to kind of continue to deteriorate. Maybe. It's becoming harder for him to complete some of his magic shows. His hands aren't as nimble as they used to be, and if you're an illusionist, sleight of hand and things are pretty important. But the good thing in his favor is a lot of his comedy was supposed to kind of be
Slapstick and messy.
yeah, we're like, okay, if the fake tongue falls out of his mouth, he's just going to play it off as a joke and the people are going to laugh at that. It's, if you're going to be a comedy magician with a debilitating disease of some sort or deteriorating health, that's the type of magician to be. If you're doing like really intricate stuff, you might not be able to continue going as long as he was able to do.
Right.
But it is becoming harder for him to do it. He tries to act unaffected. He's proud, but you can tell he's affected by it. All the while, during the whole documentary, from time to time, he steals away to go smoke meth.
He says, I'm going to the bathroom.
I'm going to the bathroom, and he grabs his little kit, and he goes to the bathroom.
and then he opens the door and says, "Do you have my lighter?"
Yeah.
Right.
And then you see his wife hand it to him, and she looks so sad.
I know. I felt bad for her.
Yeah.
He doesn't want his smoking meth to be on camera, and they talk about that. They can talk about it as much as they want, but they can't show it. They have to put a little black box over the meth pipe, which is like, okay, I mean, you can see what you're doing. But that was a little weird to me. I don't know what kind of
Legal ramifications.
I don't know what kind of legal ramifications, like Katy said. I don't know what that world is like. But anyway, Ben takes a little trip with his dad and his stepmom to a beautiful little coastal house in East Greenwich, Rhode Island, which is very close to where Andrew Milko lives. I believe he even mentions East Greenwich in our Sleepless Unrest episode. So go check out our episode on the Sleepless Unrest and see Andrew. He's also in Stoney Knows How. So that was a shameless plug to go listen to our other episodes. Even Ben's parents are questioning what the hell the purpose of him continuing this documentary are. Is Ben just wanting to make sure he's not a failure? Is that why he continues? Does he think he's justified in keeping going, or should he have just stopped there? What do you guys think?
I think he wanted to make sure he wasn't exploiting him.
Okay.
First,
Yep.
I think he thought originally it was going to end with his death, And
Right.
when he realized he's going to keep going and he wasn't actually going to die, he didn't know how the film was going to end. And then by looking into it, he's like, oh, I'm kind of exploiting him. It's a death documentary. Now, how does it end?
Yeah, and that was a recurring theme throughout the whole second half of the documentary. You know, how, and I mean, his dad asked him, like, in a perfect world, what's your ending here? And I don't think it was lost on Jonathan that your perfect ending is me dying. Sorry that I'm not, you know, doing that yet, you know, but kind of fuck you if that's really what you want, you know, and, you know, but do you continue? You know, where's your story? And to speak to, in my opinion, some of what I consider to be sort of a forced storyline in this, you know, in part of this, I lean more toward Katy's impression of this documentary, where I do kind of, after watching it, during the watch, I was glued. But after watching it and doing my notes and everything, I'm sort of going, okay, you had to find something interesting about what was going on, so you put in your own, Ben put in his own, you know, story into it, which is not a bad thing necessarily, but I don't think that was the intention. So I guess my question is, does he keep going so that it's not a failure and a waste of his time? Probably some of that. I think he's justified to keep going. I mean, you got the permission to do it, so finish it. But I can't say that I would have continued after this point.
He definitely believed in his vision of everything, and he already had producers and the gear and had spent however long filming already. Like, he had a story, and the story he wanted, he was working on, but then this other crew comes in, and the things he wants to film, he's now fighting for that space to get.
Right.
So it's like, you know,
not quite as much of a gimme anymore.
Yeah, and he can't even film the other crew because they don't want to be in it. He has to blur everything out with them.
Yeah, which is a feat in, you know, post production and everything as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so he talks to his parents, you know, and then we cut back to him being in another one of Jonathan's shows. Ben goes into the green room, and there's a guy there, a guy that says his name is Chad. Chad starts asking a whole bunch of questions about the filming, the production. And Ben's like, okay, but who are you? Why are you asking so many questions? To this unknown man is so curious about his documentary, and he's just kind of going, what's going on? Well, it turns out that Mad Chad is a documentarian as well, that Jonathan has given permission to yet another person to make a documentary about the Amazing Jonathan. There is a third crew making a third completely unrelated documentary on the same thing. This time, though, Ben finds out that Chad had actually started filming 2 years earlier, making him the original, which means that Ben was stepping into Chad's world, just like the bigwig company was doing into Ben's. Everyone still tracking?
Yeah.
Right. Yep. Were you guys saying what the fuck as much as I was at this point? Like holy shit, really?
I got up from the couch and had an Oreo and said, I give up.
I just kept thinking the same thing. More the mirror. What the heck? I think Jonathan was saying, hey, whatever.
Yeah.
He just rolled with the punches at this time.
Just pure chaos.
Yep.
Yeah.
And he enjoyed it. That's what it looked like.
Jonathan?
Yeah, I think he enjoyed it. You know?
Yeah. You know, I was like, Ben, just quit, man. Like, I feel like at that point, I don't know that I would have felt, maybe it's a self-confidence thing, you know, going, I don't know that I'm going to be able to hang with all, you know, I don't even like to, you know, I don't even like to compete in like sports and things like that. I've never been very competitive. So if I'm sitting there going, if I'm not the one who's doing this, then, you know, I don't know that I want to do it at all. You're
going to compete with other shots, other cameras and other interviews. And like after he does that interview in the green room, he's got 2 other crews he has to do it with. Like every time he does it, he's going to have to do it 3 times, and he's not going to want to. He's sick.
Yeah.
So not everybody's going to have the best stuff. And it's just madness.
Yeah. And I was getting pissed at Jonathan at this this point too, and like, dude, come on.
You're doing it on purpose.
Yeah.
That's why I thought he
fucking
called
around.
them.
Yeah.
The audacious Jonathan.
Yeah. That should be the name of this doc. Yeah. So Ben actually goes to Chad and actually apologizes, saying, I didn't mean to step on your toes. Like, I didn't know. And, Chad basically, he says, I appreciate your apology, but it's not necessary. Everyone's just trying to do their thing. This is a competitive world we're in. No, you didn't know you were stepping on toes. And even if you did, Jonathan gave you permission to do it. So, you're fine, which is when we find out that Chad is actually Mad Chad, who's a chainsaw juggler. So just add a little bit more weirdness into this.
Which, how do you start that? Do you just go in the garage and say, I'm going to try juggling? You just close your eyes and you point.
Hopefully you start with it turned off. Because
he's been doing
you start
it for
with
a while,
hammers and it fell on your head, and then you go to chainsaw.
He's been doing it for a
you get
while.
stupider
He's been
after.
doing it for a while. Entertainer. And then he got a chance to talk to somebody that's up there too in the big world with him, and that could be more like light on his entertainment. Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah. I felt about Ben, so I'm going back to Ben.
Yeah, go.
I think Ben was struggling, and I think that was like his big thing that can bring him out. Just by watching his life and everything, and how he lived, and how things were unkept.
Yeah, and let's get into that a little bit. We go back to Ben questioning everything about his own film. Is it going to be good enough, or is it going to be better than the other two films? How do I make my own story stand out? His dad questions him. I think it was his dad that questioned him. What interested you in a dying magician in the first place? Why are you doing this? And then Ben's friend telling him, keep going, because if you stop, you fail out automatically.
Right.
Right.
So what's your advice if Ben calls you in this situation? Katie, what are you telling him?
I'd say you're up shit creek, keep paddling.
It's a good show too. Shit's Creek. Yeah.
Up shit creek, keep paddling.
But your suggestion is keep going.
Right. You have to be the one with your head above water. So keep your list tight and say, I'm going to be the one with the first interview. I'm going to be the one picking out the best shots, and know that shit's going to get weirder because you just found out that there's a second and third documentary crew. It's probably going to get worse. So just stay on top of your game and keep going.
Yep. And to speak to what James had said too, Ben starts to wonder if maybe his mom's death kind of attracted him to filming death, or like the end of days, which is possible. He was young when she died, and he was filming. I mean, we saw old footage of his mom. She must have had cancer of some sort, because she had, a bandana on her head. Which is, maybe that was something ingrained where he felt he was doing some sort of homage, or he had some attraction toward the sort of darker feeling.
A way to relieve that emptiness inside him.
Then he reads a letter that she wrote to him. And this is when James was talking about, they really focused in this documentary on the fact that there was a bunch of dog poop in the yard, and the fact that the dishes were not done. And it was just some of the sort of choices that they made, which I didn't actually catch. James brought this up to us earlier today, that they focus on some of
Ben's house?
Yeah, some of the unkept areas, which starts to make you wonder, how Ben was struggling, which I think is what you were talking about, James.
Exactly.
Yeah. And he reads a letter that his mother wrote to him, encouraging him never to give up his creativity, which this sort of serves as we're at least supposed to, I think, interpret this as his little spark to keep going. So Ben goes and sort of gets on Jonathan's case. He tells him, you're not telling me things. You're keeping me out of the loop. He finds out that Jonathan went to Chris Angel's Walk of Fame star unveiling. He feels Jonathan's keeping stuff from him, and he's like, hey, man, you have 3 documentaries that are being made about you, and you need to be telling us things. You're doing things like going and doing cool stuff that this could be something in our documentary. And Jonathan's like 3 documentaries.
4.
You mean 4 documentaries? He says, don't forget about Nikki. And the camera zooms in. The camera zooms in on Jonathan, and he gives this little smirk like, oh, shit.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't tell you about Nikki, did I?
Right.
There, ladies and gentlemen, is a 4th documentary that had been started to be made, or at this point that Ben believed was still being made, about the amazing fucking Jonathan.
He's not that interesting.
No. So it turns out Nikki's documentary, though, had stopped being made. Whether she got, I think they said she got terminated or something like that.
She stopped the project for undisclosed reasons.
Okay. I got to wonder what that's all about. You know, she didn't want to be on camera. She didn't want her, you know, anything to be used, but she was willing to give Ben all the footage she got. She basically said, I don't want this anymore. You can have it. Well, this was probably one of the more interesting and weirder parts of the documentary to me, because when Ben started going through the films, what did he find, Brice?
He found the exact same things he filmed.
Yeah.
But filmed prior.
Yeah.
Years
prior. So almost verbatim.
Yeah.
I mean, he's saying the same jokes. He's given the same reasons. They're saying the same words. And come to find out, Chad had the same footage too. Chad's like, yeah, those are the same things that were said to me. So Jonathan knew what sounded good. Mm-hmm. Jonathan knew he was trying to sell it to all the buyers. This is my story.
4 specific buyers.
4 buyers, right. And they're all going to end up with the exact same documentary. So, you know, to Ben's credit, at least he tried to come up with a way to make this, you know, interesting.
His.
Yeah, his.
He tried to investigate what was happening, or he put all the pieces together.
Yeah. Then, okay, so that's the biggest, you know, the thing, the big twist about this film was there's 4 different documentary crews that had been working with Jonathan, and none of them knew about each other, except for maybe the big wig guys. They knew and didn't care.
Right.
Then we get into a part that I don't want to spend a ton of time on, because I feel like this was the dumbest part of the film. I feel like it was something that was done to just grab some attention. I feel like it wasn't something that needed to be there. It was stupid. Ben starts watching footage of himself and Jonathan, as a documentarian would do, right? He's reliving stuff. When Jonathan tells him he doesn't want to be filmed smoking meth, Jonathan says, Ben, I want you to smoke with me on camera. And Ben's like, what? He said, if you're going to be on there with me doing that, then you can show it if you show yourself too. Basically saying, the only way I don't want you, because Ben's basically asking him, why wouldn't you want me to show you doing that if you're going to talk about it anyway? And he's like, well, you do it with me then and tell me you want to be on film. So Ben contemplates doing this. He reaches out to his friends and asks other comedians and stuff, even reaches out to a lawyer. They all pretty much give different answers, but mostly this is stupid, don't do it. Some of the comedians are like, you know, well, that's commitment. I don't know if I would do that. And then, of course, Eric Andre.
It's like, absolutely,
yeah,
you need to do this.
it. Yeah, but that's just on brand for Eric Andre. Yeah. And just to me, you know, if this was the entirety of the documentary, this like 10-minute stretch of this piece, I would have thought this was the worst thing, the stupidest thing ever made. And it seemed like such a big stretch. Like, it almost felt like contrived drama. Like, I want to smoke with you. And he's like, no, you fucking don't. Like, I'm not going to be.
It's almost like he didn't even remember the conversation.
Well, he didn't.
And he had to bring in and show him the recording because he didn't remember things he'd said.
Right.
It's just pointless.
And I think a lot of that too was because he didn't think that he would ever actually do it. Yeah. He didn't really want him to actually do it.
Yeah. Right. Who would take you up on that?
Right. And the fact that he found that and said, I'm going to go do it so that, and at least it's implied that he does it. So he goes there. He, you know, Jonathan's not going to fight him too hard. He's like, all right, if you want to do this, you know,
like I don't. Any typical drug user.
Right. Because at first he's like, I don't want to be the reason to get you hooked on this. But then he's like, but if you want to do it, I'm not going to be the one. And he loads up the pipe for him or whatever. And it just felt like a stupid stunt. They paused the screen right before Ben did it, they put the little black box over it, and they imply that he did it. Now, do we think that he actually did it? I don't know.
I don't know neither.
He definitely did.
He definitely did it.
Because
he was in his mouth.
yeah, it was in his mouth. It was lit.
Absolutely did it.
And then they played the recording of the voicemail of the law office calling him back.
Yeah.
Saying you should put a black box if you're
Yep.
going to do it.
Yeah.
So it was kind of the
And
same.
he wants it to be different than everybody else's. He's
Right.
willing to go above and beyond. I think he totally did it.
He's so desperate
Yeah.
for that competitive
Yeah,
edge
that's
he's
like I said, it goes back to how he's living. I mean,
Oh, you
how
think
you live and
his house and his backyard?
Upkeep. He's trying to make this into something.
Yeah.
And
It
neither
just-
one of the people that did a documentary would do that.
No.
But the
You
thing
know.
is they never, through the remainder of the document, they never talked about it again. It didn't give him any exclusive
Nothing.
like rights. It didn't make him the person that Jonathan was like, now we're cool and you're going to get everything and everyone else is gone. It didn't give him anything. or
I don't even
anywhere.
think he was going for that. I just think he was going for just like, look at the guy, like the negative.
Shock factor.
Yeah, the negative thing. Because sometimes in movies, negative can bring more fame to you than the positive,
Right.
And I really seen him smoking that stuff. And the first thing I thought was, man, you so stupid.
Yeah,
This the
me too. Like,
dumbest-
this is dumb.
Right.
You're dumb.
I get it. And then I said,
Ben,
I get it. Yeah.
if you're listening to this, that
we
was
all
dumb.
think you're stupid.
Or at least that was stupid.
I think you think it was wise to do that,
But
but
it
it wasn't wise.
I think he realized how dumb it was, but I don't think he was going to smoke meth for nothing. So he
put
had
it
to
on.
he had to keep it in.
Yeah.
I guess,
Okay.
man. I feel like I would have hid that. Like, no,
Yeah.
never mind. Okay, so at this point, then Ben gets an interesting call from one of his producers. Apparently, the producer out of the quote unquote big wig company, who's big Oscar winning, the big Oscar winning producer for this company, whose name is Simon Chin, was supposedly at the helm of this second documentary, right? The crew number 2.
So they said.
So they said. So it turns out Simon Chin is saying that he is not involved with that second documentary at all. In fact, he didn't even know about it. So it might be at this point that the company or the producer who did Man on Wire, Searching for Sugar Man, the famous production companies, putting together the other documentary, but there's just sort of someone claiming that, right? And the question is, are they claiming to be someone they're not? Does Jonathan even know this? They don't really know. This whole thing starts leading Ben and his friends and the audience to start wondering the same thing. You start making a film about a man who has had a year to live, right? But he's lived for 4 at this point. He said he had a big film crew. Turns out he doesn't. Can we really believe anything that Jonathan says? Is he a true illusionist, prankster, comedian that's just kind of pulling the wool over everyone's eyes? That's what everyone's thinking, right? Even one of Jonathan's friends pulls Ben aside at this party. So this guy named Brice, hey, and tells him that there's things going on that, wink, wink, you might want to wink, wink, no, and be careful because there's wink, wink more to the story, right? What do you guys think at this point? Did you think he was faking it? Because they're considering the fact that, is he even sick?
I believed he was sick because they were talking about cardiomyopathy and the doctor's appointments they'd been to. I believed his wife believed it.
Yeah.
And if she believed it, then I believed it.
Yeah.
I believe he was sick also.
Yeah. Was there any piece of you guys that was questioning at this point, like, is he really just like faking all this? Could it be?
I mean, we got to see him take all of his medications and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So like we kind of felt it was real, but I think if we were there and we were just, friends that didn't get to see all that.
Sure.
we'd
The
be
inside
like,
private life.
Yeah,
Right.
we'd
And
be
I-
like, is he really sick?
Right.
Because Brice was introduced as Jonathan's best friend.
Right.
And I don't know how real that was. But
That's a fair point. Like,
Yeah.
they might have been looking in from the outside and
Yeah.
they didn't know his medical history. They hadn't seen medicines. They didn't watch him deteriorate. They just see him on stage.
Yep.
That's a good point.
When I saw those medicine bottles, I knew
Yeah.
he was, because, I got to take 6 different ones myself. So
yeah,
I got
know
a box
for
at
a
home.
fact.
Yeah.
Yep.
So after he finds out all this or starts thinking about it, he starts having doubts. For some reason, it becomes impossible for him to get a hold of Johnathan. He tries and tries. He calls.
And that voicemail was so annoying.
I know. I'm trying to remember now what it was, but it was something like...
He was like, yeah,
hey,
how you doing?
Hey.
What's up?
What's up? This is Jonathan's voicemail. Like, oh, God, that's annoying. But he tries. He never gets anything. Then Ben decides he starts doing some searching about the other documentary crew. So the Big Wig film gets released at the Just for Laughs Film Festival in Vancouver. So Ben's like, you know what? I'm going to go check it out. There's a Q&A with the people who made it. And he hires a fucking actor.
Yep.
Genius.
So, yeah, to go there as well. So that the actor can ask the big wigs, quote unquote, about their involvement on Man on Wire and Sugar Man and all of that. So they see the film. There's only like 20 people at the screening, including Ben and the actor.
They said 22.
Okay, so yeah, so not
it was a very sparsely populated theater.
And they open the QA, and the actor says, was your filming process similar to the process you used on Man on Wire and Searching for Sugar Man? And they completely stuttered. They barely answered.
Shut down.
They dodged the question. They're like, well, no, it wasn't the same. And next
we have
question.
to go. Thanks.
Yeah. So this, solidified to all the listeners and all the people watching and whatever that they maybe didn't have anything to do with that company that made these Oscar-winning films.
Right.
And for some reason, and I'm not sure why, maybe I just, whatever. But in Ben's mind, all these signs of treachery leads back to Johnathan. So he finally gets a hold of Johnathan, right? The Big Wig film didn't do as big wig as nobody, at least according to what it looked like on here. If you search the Amazing Johnathan Documentary, you don't find that film, you find this one. So I don't think that thing did any, was any,
it's dead.
Fame. Yeah, it's dead. But he finally gets a hold of Johnathan, and he decides to confront him. It's been a while since he's talked to him. Ben calls out Johnathan and essentially accuses him of fabricating his diagnosis. He claims that he's been deceived and that he doesn't know what's real and fake. And rightfully so, Johnathan starts to get defensive. He claims that he's not lying. He says, why would I lie about this? Why would I hurt my own career and my family? And to lie about this, he calls Ben a fucking idiot, and he walks away. He's like, basically, get out of my house.
Insulted, yeah.
Yeah. How'd you guys feel watching that interview? Like,
I was on the fence at that point.
I was cringing.
I mean, you can be a good liar. He looked like he was telling the truth. He looked personally offended and very deeply hurt that someone would accuse him of that. So I definitely believed him. But in my head, I'm listening to those questions. Like if you ask someone if you like, did you take my $20? Why would I do that? Why would I do that to you? That's a liar. But he definitely wasn't lying. He was in a lot of pain and he was very sad.
I got the cringe as he was talking. And I feel
secondhand embarrassment.
Yeah. I feel like Ben almost felt the same way.
Yeah.
When he started asking him, he's like, well, I've already kind of committed to asking him this question.
So I might as well.
But I almost feel like I need to start retracting this right now because your answer is legit.
I mean, Bruce lied to Ben.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, I don't know if Bruce was trying to, the skeptic in me wonders if that was a planted thing for the sake of the documentary. I don't know.
I think he probably just wanted to be on TV.
Yeah, and wanted to stir the pot a little bit.
Like, I'm his best friend, like you said.
Yeah.
Like,
and he said, get film whatever you need to get because you don't know when that's gonna stop.
Right.
And then he doesn't hear from Johnathan for a long time, and then he finally gets this clearly like lighting setup and final like interview thing, and then asks a stupid question.
Yeah, and he makes an accusation.
Like a setup, basically.
Yeah. James, where were you at in that point?
Well, I just had a little laugh. That's all I had on that one because you could tell that to me, Ben didn't really he felt in his mind that he didn't know what to think. So many different things coming out of him, so many different people saying things. So he had to find out for himself.
Yeah.
But then when he came and talked to him, you can see the recognition that, well, I shouldn't say that. Because he even asked him, come back, but softly and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So.
It almost felt like, you've got a spouse that kind of makes up their own story about their spouse, like stepping out on them or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you make up this story in your head that, all signs point to that, because you're trying to, even if it's subconsciously trying to create a dramatic situation, and you're kind of going, I have a concern that this thing bad is happening, so I'm gonna sort of, what do they call it, a bias, when you are kind of
unconscious bias.
Yeah, like sure, where you're sort of like, there's a word,
prejudice, or
like when you're trying to, you almost see the signs that point.
When you look for things that are wrong.
Yeah, and it sort of it makes its own story. So you make your own story in your mind about what's going on, and then when
confirmation bias.
Confirmation bias. Thank you so much, Katy.
Yep, took me a minute.
Yep, me too. Obviously, and you're looking for those reasons, and then they seem to show themselves. But if you were to step back, zoom out a little bit, they might not look as clear cut. And I feel like, Ben talking to Jonathan was sort of like confronting his quote unquote spouse, in the scenario where it's like, oh, no, I'm the one being dumb here. Like, yeah, Jonathan might not have made all the right decisions and, getting all this drama, stirred up and everything, but you're not doing what I accused you of doing, and now I look like the jackass. So anyway, in a last-ditch effort to try to make something of his film after Jonathan told him off and is pissed at him, Ben flies to London. He goes to London to
recruit an executive producer.
Right. Late in the game, he decides to go talk to the man himself, Simon Chin, who was responsible for Man on Wire, Searching for Sugar Man, the two documentaries that are talked about more in this documentary than anything else.
That Jonathan told everyone he was a part of.
Yep. And Ben explains everything to Chin, and he's, the other guy's claiming his involvement with the movie, which, Chin still denies. He tells Simon that he's convinced that Jonathan is actually sick now. He says, I believe he's actually sick. Then, plain and simple, in a stroke of, some brass balls, he asks the big executive, the Oscar-winning, producer, would you be interested in producing my film? This would mean that Jonathan wasn't lying, or even unintentionally lying, when he said that he was going to have Simon Chin on his, working on his film. And we're left with sort of a cliffhanger. Simon doesn't look real excited about it at that point. He's kind of looking, but again, I wonder how staged that was to try to raise some, but he asked
he
him.
Produced it after all, so
he
did.
Did
he put that in there? Did he create that?
Right.
Now?
Right.
I think he got his natural reaction. I think he definitely had to, do his research after that, but he definitely was like, I'd think about it.
Yeah, and I wonder if Chin was kind of pissed. Like, I part of me wonders, like, you set me up with this, you put me on camera to ask me this and to get my reaction. Because it looked like a pissed face. Like, it looked like he was like, really,
I was pretty
dude?
embarrassed for him.
Yeah, like, really? You brought me here to ask me about something that I'm being, somebody was claiming my involvement. Yeah. And now you're going to ask me to do it? But whatever happened behind the scenes, with a snap, Ben's back in Detroit. We're left with a cliffhanger.
Mm-hmm.
He meets up with Jonathan at a retirement community where they're celebrating Jonathan's mother's 90th birthday. Jonathan's in his mobility scooter thing, and Ben pulls Jonathan aside. And to Jonathan's credit, he's pretty open to Ben. He's like, "Yeah, we'll go talk. That's cool." he says, I owe you a few apologies. He apologizes for leaning too far into the death side of Jonathan's story, essentially saying, yep, I was waiting for you to die. And that feels like exploitation, like Katy was saying earlier. That would have been the perfect ending, but I realize that that's not right. And he also apologizes for questioning the validity of his illness. And Jonathan has a great response to that. He says, Ben, I question the validity of my illness. I'm sitting here thinking I have a year left to live. I don't blame you for questioning that, but you got to understand before you accuse me of that, you know, how that's going to make me feel, because I'm sitting here wondering when I'm going to die. My clock's run out.
Yeah.
You know? But this is the point where it is revealed that Ben was able to get Simon Chin to join them as an executive producer, and Jonathan is happy.
Yep.
The first person he tells is his mom, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
He then proceeds to brag about it to every single person at the party. Everyone's proud of Jonathan. It seems like the audience is proud of Ben at this point, and that's the end of the film. I mean, the final scenes of the film are Ben pushing Jonathan through the streets on a wheelchair. We get an audio phone call of Simon Chin saying, okay, I got some information for you. Apparently there was a person from the big fake bigwig, film crew that had asked somebody from Simon's company, can we borrow some filming equipment? And they said yes. So in a roundabout way, his company was involved.
And so somebody said somebody, like, we're associated with it. And then the rumor just, like, exploded all over itself. And
right. And
that's so annoying.
And they hammed it up. And it's almost like, when they got called at their film debut on it, they're like, I didn't know anyone was really listening to that. But, like, yeah, the guy who...
When you shout it, people are listening.
I think when their subjects started to brag about it so much...
Yeah.
And that was their... hook to get all this access and be kind of like the prime crew getting all the best spots and everything. Like, they weren't gonna say, no, we don't have that.
Right. Well, when you have Simon Chin, who has no problem having his face on camera, when you've got Mad Chad, who has no problem having his face on camera, but your crew, you're hiding something. If you're wanting to be hidden, if you're denying all the filming,
access,
yeah. So that's the end. That's it. It should be noted, after this film was released on February 22nd of 2022 at the age of 63, which is almost 15 years past his life expectancy, Jonathan Seasels died in his sleep of heart failure at his home in Las Vegas. A memorial service was held for the Amazing Johnathan, where he was humorously eulogized by Penny Wiggins, also known as Psychic Tanya, Mac King, Butthole the Clown, Billy the Mime, Chris Angel, Tapeface, and Harrison Greenbaum. So rest in peace, Amazing Johnathan. Well done living your life longer. I wish you had done it a little healthier, but good for you for doing what you love doing. I think it should also be noted that despite Simon Chin's involvement in this film, this documentary did not win any Oscars. It did get some nominations at like Sundance and Cinema Eye and things like that, but no Oscars, no nominations, nothing like that. So anyway, that's it. How did you feel after watching? I've been asking you guys about your feelings a lot today, but yeah. Brice?
I felt relieved. I felt it was a good ending. Because with all the distress and all the pain that Ben went through, he finally wrapped up his story. Not how he planned, but he got it done at whatever cost.
Yeah.
Whether it was smoking meth or, here's a better idea, flying to London and getting a big-name executive producer.
Yeah, that's better.
Yeah, that's probably
choice.
the better choice. Yeah. If you have to choose between the two, go to London.
One's easier.
Yeah.
The other's is healthier.
Yeah.
I'll let you decide which is which. Yeah. Katy.
I brushed my teeth after. because I couldn't stop feeling it, and then I took a nap because I felt that was a better use of my time. But yeah,
wow. He'll thank you for that. James, feelings. Tell me about your feelings.
Well, I didn't brush my teeth, so
I know I can smell you from over here.
I can smell me from over here too. Oh, well, yeah.
Is that why that microphone's labeled James only?
Yeah, yeah. James's beard only.
Yep. This stuff is starting to melt off of this. No, I'm just kidding.
Gross.
No, at the end of the video, I thought, okay. I thought, yeah, that's cool. I mean, Ben and Jonathan were just friends.
Buddies.
The film, they got closer during the film, and I think it really didn't matter anymore. Ben pushing him in the wheelchair,
Buddy cop.
Almost like driving Miss Daisy.
Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah.
Push me over here to the bathroom right quick. You got a light on you, Ben?
Yeah.
Just every day.
I felt good for Ben and Jonathan for the most part. The story was a wild ride. I felt happy for them overall. I felt sad for Jonathan, but mostly because of his drug addiction. I think it was a pretty well-made documentary for what they had. They sold the drama. They succeeded in keeping me invested. Apparently not everybody, but it sort of did feel like they really had to put a lot of things together in order to make this a good documentary, though. And I wonder how much of that was executive producer Simon Chin going, okay, show me what you got, and now we have to make this
some
interesting
magic
somehow.
Right.
Yeah.
Use my money to make it better.
Didn't it seem like, I was telling Brice this earlier, we watch a lot of documentaries, we talk about a lot of them, but some of the documentaries like this one seemed like it's I want to relabel it reality documentaries. That's what I felt like it's like a reality show, but a documentary at the same time,
Yeah.
But
that's a really good point.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
It's a lot of drama in this one.
a lot of drama.
Yeah, and I feel like, though, without Ben's addition of his own shit in this, I don't know that this would have been a very compelling documentary. I mean, it could have been if it had been made well, but I don't know. It's hard to know.
The first 5 minutes was good. You get the Amazing Jonathan documentary, and then you get
The Amazing Jonathan,
Right.
Ben.
The amazing clusterfuck of whatever.
Also, can we talk about the opening scene where they're talking to the Echo or whatever?
Yeah.
And then Ben asks, what's the best Amazing Jonathan documentary? And it replies the jury's still out on that one.
Oh, that's funny.
Like, that's foreshadowing.
Yeah. I wonder if I ask Siri what the...
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so finally we've come to the time in our show where we need to rate this documentary with an official documentary rating. Each crew member scores the documentary on a scale of 1 to 10 items, with 1 being as bad as pulling a nail through a fake tongue, and 10 being as great as drinking Windex, so you will keep your clothes on and not streak.
That was such a good joke.
I know. The item that's used for scoring changes each week depending on the content of the documentary we watched. And this week, we will be using documentary cruise as our rating item. So, let's start with Brice, since this was your choice. Brice, how many documentary cruise did it take to get you through The Amazing Jonathan?
I gave it 8 documentary cruise.
8, baby. All right. Let's go right into the middle and go James. King James himself. How many documentary crews did it take you to get through this one?
6.
6 whole crews.
6 whole crews.
All right. One of those crews was terminated, and you got the footage. And yeah,
Exactly.
okay. Katie.
We got 1 and 2.
2. The 2 most important. The big wig and Ben. All right. 2 documentary
I think she got
crews
more
from
ratings out of
Katie.
brushing her teeth.
Yeah. She enjoyed brushing her teeth afterwards.
I did. I felt so much better.
So bright.
If I were to ask you how many documentary crews was your nap after the...
Probably 7.
Ooh, that's a good
It was
nap.
very toasty.
All right.
Covered by animals.
Yeah,
so.
that's the best kind of
Yep.
nap. I gave this 8 as well. It took 8
You guys
documentary
are
crews.
smoking meth.
Yeah. You know, I think the main reason for me giving it such a high score was the fact that I did not at any point, unlike the way Katy felt, I felt like I needed to see what happened next.
Right.
And that's the one thing about documentaries that you don't always get.
That's true.
As opposed to like, Hollywood films, right?
Yep.
Like entertainment fiction, because they're telling history or they're telling a story, but there's not a lot of, I gotta see what happens next in documentaries.
Mm-hmm.
But this one, it had me going, yes, oh my gosh, what's gonna happen? So, I think it for that reason is why it scored. Not because I loved I didn't have any investment in Jonathan. I didn't know like his story. I wasn't a fan of his, like I didn't know about him. Ben, a sympathetic character, sure, but not anything that I, related to too much, but it kept my attention.
Yeah.
So for that reason, I gave it an 8. So after averaging everyone's scores, the official documentary rating for the Amazing Johnathan Documentary is 6 documentary crews, even more than Jonathan had in his real life. You all, ladies and gentlemen, have been a wonderful audience this evening. A special thank you goes to our volunteers, King James and Lady Katy, for volunteering to come up on stage with me, and of course my lovely assistant Brice.
You look so good in those sequins.
Yeah, you're looking ravishing this evening.
Too terrible.
I want you all to know that if I had to pick someone to saw in half on stage, it would quite possibly be one of you. Now, let's talk about next week's episode. For next week, we crawl into the trenches and immerse ourselves into what it was like to be a soldier during World War I.
Oh, man.
Through an inspiring and historical documentary from 2018 titled They Shall Not Grow Old. This documentary, directed and produced by Peter Jackson of Lord of the Rings and King Kong fame, tells the story of this historical moment in world history through groundbreaking computer restoration of never-before-seen footage from this conflict. Have any of you seen this documentary?
Oh,
nope.
Yeah.
You have.
Saw it in theaters.
Did you?
Shut up!
Yeah.
That's
it's
so cool.
It's so good.
Is it?
Yeah.
I know this was one that your sister, for our contest, she had asked for this one. We're like, it's actually on the list
it's
already.
on the list.
So sorry. Did you like this one? It was great.
It's so good. Yeah.
Really?
I mean,
looking forward to it.
I love everything with Peter Jackson.
Yeah.
But
Peter who?
Oh, James.
I love you, James.
Oh, thank you very much.
But you're walking
Sometimes
a
I
fine
got to check on my
line.
new subjects. I mean,
But quit
Peter-
smoking meth.
yeah. To the left. No, let's get...
For this one, we will be joined by 2 very good friends of the show, Mr. Nick Dolan, a.k.a. Deadeye Nick Dolan, and Mr. Connor Hoynes, a.k.a. Con Man. Everyone, please go out, check out the documentary, They Shall Not Grow Old, before next week's episode. It can be streamed on Max or Netflix. As I said at the beginning, rate and review our podcast, follow us on all the stuff. If you've been listening this long, so we started doing something last week that I'm gonna keep trying. If you've been listening this long, go out to our social media, our YouTube, our Instagram, our Facebook, and comment the word. Katy, first word.
Duck.
Duck. You need to put the word duck on one of our on something of ours, whether it's this episode or a previous episode. Say duck or duck you or anything that says the word duck in it. And we will
duck
give you
emoji.
Yeah, a duck emoji, and we will give you a shout out. Yeah, documentary. Very good. We will give you a shout out in one of our future episodes. So thanks for listening through the end. Next week, join us as we pay tribute and honor to those who served in World War I, one documentary at a time. On behalf of Lady Katy, Mr. Brice, King James, DJ in the booth, and the entire documentary family, I'm your host, Jeff Kolaski. I want to thank you all for listening. I hope you keep your minds open and be kind to each other. But wait, I have one final illusion for you all. Since you have been such a tentative audience, and have stayed until the end of our show. I need you all to focus your energy on me. Come on, help me out. Help me as I make this episode disappear. Alakazam!